In 2362, centuries after the Interplanetary War, the very first extrasolar colonization vessel, the Odyssey, launched from its mooring platform in orbit over Luna, alongside nearly 100 other colony ships. In the weeks that followed, these vessels arrived at their destinations and began the elaborate and protracted process of terraforming alien worlds. This vast exodus was organized by the UEG's Colonial Administration Authority after many long years of preparation. The first extrasolar planet reached by humans was Epsilon Eridani II, aptly named Reach by its first inhabitants. In the decades to come, it would become humanity's colonial center of military power. A number of other colonies were established within the Epsilon Eridani system, including both Tribute and Circumstance, and comparatively smaller colonies in other star systems such as Ballast, New Carthage, Actium, Lyton, Miridum, and Chi-Rho. All of these were considered core worlds or inner colonies, strong, densely populated settlements closest to Earth via slipspace travel. Outer colonies were those further from the human homeworld, such as Harvest, Coral, Madrigal, Second Base, Arcadia, and Green Hills. Many of these served as agricultural or mining colonies, depending on the particular resource they provided. By the 26th century, over 800 individual colonies were spread across the Orion Arm, including planets, moons, asteroids, mining facilities, and relay stations. Humankind saw unprecedented growth and development during this time, yet despite this progress, hostilities broke out in some of the more remote settlements. A number of civilian uprisings against Earth's control occurred from 2475 to 2483. The response from the Colonial Military Authority, or CMA, was swift and severe, but its heavy-handed tactics backfired, hardening resistance. Even stronger and more aggressive dissidents took the political stage, beginning what would be the longest period of civil unrest humanity had ever seen. In 2487, the newly established People's Occupation and the Sectionist Union submitted formal requests on behalf of a dozen worlds, demanding independence from Earth. With tensions rising on both sides, violence once again rocked the outer colonies. It was the Callisto incident that tipped the scales. In January 2494, the patrolling UNSC Callisto performed a routine inspection of a colonial vessel. It went tragically awry. Shots were fired, and 30 colonists were killed. The entire region was spun into an uproar. Shortly afterwards, the Callisto was hijacked by local terrorists who killed the crew and used the ship against UNSC forces. The UNSC responded aggressively. Having subdued and recaptured the ship, they cracked down across the territory, sparking rebellion throughout the outer colonies. The insurrection began. Guerrilla cells in the Sectionist Union assaulted colonial embassies and government buildings, and in June 2494, rebels under the leadership of ex-UNSC Marine Colonel Robert Watts orchestrated a series of military operations against the outer colony world Eridanus II. Before the CMA could respond, the local authorities had already been overrun by the Sectionist Union, and by January 2495, Eridanus II had been claimed by the rebels. This led to the UNSC's first full-scale response to the insurrection, Operation Charlemagne, a campaign to retake Eridanus II. The UNSC successfully recaptured the colony and drove Watts and his forces into hiding. Victory, however, remained out of reach. Rebel forces continued their guerrilla campaign, inflicting massive losses. By the start of the 26th century, the UNSC changed tactics, initiating Operation Kaleidoscope, a series of highly classified surgical strikes against prominent rebel leaders. Over the next 5 years, UNSC assassins targeted key rebel commanders, killing key figures such as Molin Sal, Gerald Ander, Standish Cable, and Eleanor Keff. By 2509, however, many rebel cells had combined under the leadership of Robert Watts, proudly referring to themselves as the United Rebel Front. The UNSC and the Front continued to trade blows. A Watts-led invasion force retook Eridanus II in January of 2513. Months later, a UNSC battle group assaulted the planet in what would be the first part of Operation Trebuchet, a final, brutal UNSC crackdown on the rebel activity. Although the loss of life was extraordinary, the UNSC won several notable victories, including the recapture of Eridanus II. Despite this, the turmoil and chaos of the insurrection continued unabated. It was becoming increasingly clear that conventional military means would not end this war. The insurrection left millions dead. Remarkably, the Civil War had been predicted as early as 2491 by Dr. Elias Carver. His study into the political and security situation of Earth and its colonies, known as the Carver Findings, pointed to the imminent breakdown of government in human space. Though Carver's report did not prevent the insurrection, it proved influential on some, notably Dr. Catherine Halsey.